Welcome back to the Cannonball Mindset. I am Chad Sanchkin, and I get today to spend the next hour with a really good friend of mine, somebody who has has definitely been knocked down but has come back. Matt Long, the author of The Long Run. Basically, this guy has seen it all, but then is told through a horrible, tragic accident that he's basically never going to walk without a cane. And what does he do? He responds by doing Ironman, by doing Ironman while being a firefighter, while basically beating the shit out of life. And so Matt and I met a couple years ago, right before COVID. We were just talking about it, and man, he sent me this book. Most of you know on here that I did my first Ironman a couple years ago. Matt saw me on social media posting about my Ironman journey, sent me his book, and said, "I'll just tell you, I still have it. I still go back to it. Um, only one way to go, and that's boom. Only one way to go, and that's boom." I don't know if you remember that, Matt, but super excited and grateful to have you on. Welcome to the Cannonball Mindset, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Chad. Appreciate it.
So, Matt, let me ask you a question. So, can you give me can you give us just kind of a brief overview of what inspired you to write this book, and um, what inspired the book of The Long Run, and what the tragic accident that I talked about in the opening was.
Well, first of all, growing up, I never thought I would use the title author after my name, and many of my teachers probably thought the same thing.
Yeah.
But the book it was inspired by me overcoming this tragic accident, which I never really talk about overcoming anything. You learn to live with stuff. And I had a friend in the fire department. This is after my tragic accident. He said to me, "People will benefit from hearing this story, and you should write a book." And I kind of brushed him off. And then Runner's World magazine came to me and said, "Hey, are you really planning on making a comeback?" And I said, "I am. I'm planning on running the New York City Marathon." He's like, "Well, we'd like to tag along. We'd like to talk to you. We'd like to get to know more about what happened to you and everything else." And so they did a story on me in Runner's World in 2000 and maybe 2007, 2006, called The Second Life.
Mm.
And the publishers of Runner's World took a big jump because they when you got a magazine like that, you're looking at short one-page paragraph stories.
Yeah.
Well, my story was the biggest they've ever published, 19 pages. It got more viewer response than any other story they've ever had. It changed the direction of their magazine. Now every monthly magazine has some kind of a feel-good comeback story,
Oh, yeah.
a meaningful story. And The Second Life walked into The Long Run. And me and Charlie Butler, the author of The Second Life, we did it together.
Wow. And so were you a marathon runner? When did you start? When did you run your first marathon? When did you become a quote unquote marathon runner?
All right. Well, I guess you build a bridge, you build one bridge, you're a bridge builder, right? So I ran my first marathon, and not on any common sensibility or smarts. I met a girl.
Of course, always a girl.
I was a firefighter. I was in the bar and restaurant business in Manhattan. So I met a girl who we had mutual friends with, and she was a runner. So we hung out. We started dating a little bit. She's like, "Well, I got to do a 19-mile run on." No, I was a fireman. I was in shape. I was an athlete my whole life, but I wasn't putting any miles in.
Yeah, right.
And so she's like, "Oh, we're gonna run 18 miles. One of our long runs. A group of us getting together." I'm like, "All right, I'm in."
I'm in.
So I ran the 18 miles with her. I paid dearly for it. And she's like, "Well, we're doing the marathon in November. If you can." This is like mid-September.
What year is this? Do you remember?
This is 2000 and 2000.
Yeah, yeah.
So I ran my first marathon because I was trying to impress a girl. The relationship lasted less than the finish line. She beat me by like 8 minutes. I was in brutal pain. I ran 4:10, I think. And oh, it was awful. And it was just something it was still friendly, but I was like, "Oh, this isn't happening."
And
So that was my first marathon.
And so did you continue after that, or was there a hiatus and then
There was a hiatus. There was a hiatus. I still played basketball competitively in the city. While I'm being a fireman, I traveled the world as a member of the basketball team for the New York City Fire Department. Competed in all sorts of games with them. But the running part, there was a hiatus until after September 11th. Kind of my first traumatic experience firsthand,
yeah.
and I realized I was spiraling downward, not only physically but mentally, and I needed a pick me up, and that's when I started to run.
Where were you September 11th?
I was down at ground zero for the building collapse.
Hmm.
I was there for the second collapse. Me and my team, and or the team I was on, Ladder 43, Spanish Harlem, El Barrio's Bravest, and we fortunately were one of the firehouses that went home with no one. We went home with everyone that day.
Mm. And so to go through something like that only a few amount of people will ever actually experience what you've experienced. Does that send you into a downward spiral? Is that
Yeah,
a trigger that kind of sent you down? And so how does running get involved, and how does because this isn't so when we talk about this is just the first this is the first
yeah.
tragedy you're part of. This is not the precipice of like what changed everything, but this certainly changed everything.
Correct, correct. So yeah, it was a few months, maybe a year or so that started to. Yeah, I was drinking too much, burying the emotions. A lot of guys were, and a couple of friends, thank God, tugged on a string here or there. One of them has now succumbed to his 9/11 disease. One of my good friends and firefighter mentor, and he spent a number of years in AA. And he had said to me a couple of times, he's like, you keep this up, you're going to be joining me at meetings. And, every once in a while that would a little bit of a wake up call.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I'm sitting here, I'm drinking too much. I'm having a good time. I had easy access because like I said, I was in the bar and restaurant business. Um, and I was complaining about a bad back. I was getting heavy. I was getting slow. I no longer enjoyed basketball. And I was just like, something's going on here. And a final nudge from a fellow friend, Noel Flynn, who I write about in the book. He kind of a couple of years younger than me, but we were tight. And he said, "Hey, do you want to get involved in this triathlon I'm doing to raise money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society?" And I was always up for helping others and raising some funds. So I said, "I'm in." And I said, "I just got to get a bike, got to learn how to swim." And my running is awful right now because I was just heavy.
Yeah.
So he's like, "It's good." He goes, "This would be a great training." So boom, I dove all in, and that kicked off. So my marathon and serious marathoning career got kicked off through triathlon.
Mm. And would you say that that moment with your friend, and again you write about it in the book, but would you say that saved your life?
It's the beginning of it for sure, because when we get into the next accident, next tragedy, I thank my doctors every day. If now it's going on 17 years, I thank them every day, and they say we didn't do anything. If you weren't as physically fit as you were when you were hit, he goes, you wouldn't have lived. So it was your body was ready for this.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So take us up to you do your first triathlon. I'm assuming you enjoy the punishment, the pain of the
I did.
triathlon, and
Yeah.
then so you dive full head into this is what I'm going to do now. And it was a
Yeah.
sprint, right?
So
It was a sprint,
uh, Olympic. My
Olympic.
first one was an Olympic. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did St. Anthony's down in Tampa Bay, Tampa.
Oh, and
So
just so those that don't know, what is an Olympic again? What's the distance?
Olympic is 1 mile swim,
Yeah.
25-mile bike, and a 10K.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay,
So it's
usually two and a half to 3.5 hours is your
your window.
average guy.
Yeah.
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 Um, so that period of time, I had gone back to the marathon because I now with the fire department I wanted to break 4 hours. So I had gone back and I wound up training with a couple of guys, and I think my second marathon I went 3:56. So I was all right, broke 4 hours, back into the parties and everything
Again,
else.
New York City?
Was that?
Was it again? The second one was New York
Yeah,
City?
yeah, New York City. Yeah, it's the only marathon outside of Ironman. I've only run 5 New York City marathons.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry.
And yeah, so St. Anthony's, I really enjoyed it. And now 4 months of training leading up to it, things started to change for me. I was no longer complaining about a bad back, and mentally I was feeling better about myself. Where I was still having a good time in life and drinking and having fun, but it wasn't. It was just social. It wasn't to bury any emotion anymore. So I really liked that. I was really feeding off that what it was doing for me mentally and physically. So yeah, I just started putting races on my calendar. I joined a club with like-minded people. So Saturday morning, 6 o'clock, there was 30 of us at a certain part of Central Park. Boom, off we go for 50, 60, 70 miles, whatever was going to be on the bike that day.
Yeah.
And that's a big key to part of my success is who you surround yourself with.
Oh yeah, yeah. We
If
talked.
you want to run a fast marathon, don't hang around slow eating firemen. You hang around fast marathon people.
Yeah, you talk a lot about this in your book. It seems to be an overwhelming theme about the circle that you're in and the people that you surround yourself with. Do you think that is a where do you think that fits in the tools necessary to have success in any area, whether it be triathlons, life, in a fire department, whatever? How important is that?
It's essential. It's essential. And now, I'm not saying that you. I believe that everyone. I explain my circles to my kids, and I think I wrote about it in the book this way. But I call them the Olympic rings. And I'm fortunate. You know how the Olympic rings, each ring overlaps.
Yeah.
So I like to look at those rings and say, okay, and I could put where I went to college in one circle. I could put New York City firemen in one circle, and then I may have a friend from college that I'm friendly with, but I may not give him or her anything, and they may not give me anything in return towards my success. But where that fire department circle and the college circle cross each other,
Mm.
there's a group of people. There's a group of people that team worthy. There are a group of people that you guys are my close friends. You guys are the people that I want around when I have success, when I want around when I need help, when I want around when I'm failing to keep me going. And every part of my life has that. I believe it. I still have college friends, high school friends, basketball friends. Everyone's there that I can call and say, "Oh, I need to put this together today," or "I wonder if I'm making the right choice." So, I believe you if your thought in life is that you're going to get there and you're going to get there by yourself, it's never going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Henry Cloud says, we are limited in what we can do by ourselves. We are limitless in what we can do with the help with others. And I'm a big, big believer that you need other people to help you achieve what you want to achieve. All right. So now you're,
100%.
now you're head first. You're all in. You seem to be an all in type of guy. So it makes sense that you're now all in. You're going to training for these Ironman. You do this, you do the second New York City Marathon. You get under 4. Now you're going to do you finally decide, hey, I'm going to step up and do a full Ironman? Because full Ironman, I know is not an easy task.
No, it's not. It's not easy. It's not like I think even though it has grown, I think less than 2% of professional athletes can even tackle it.
Yeah, can complete
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So I'm all in. 2004 early was the first triathlon, and from 2004 till July of 2005, I built myself up. Olympic sprint. I did 3 half Ironman, and then July 2005 was my first debut at Ironman Lake Placid. Yeah, picked the one with all the hills, and
I'm laughing because my first Ironman is Ironman Maryland, the flattest course in the history of flat. I think there's a total elevation gain to the whole Ironman of like 100 feet, and you started Lake
yeah.
Placid.
Yeah, Lake Placid. So the good thing was that's where we went and trained. It's beautiful up there, and there's no energy any other sporting event I've ever been to than the days leading up to an Ironman. And the village gets all pumped up, and everyone's fit, tone, differently, but it's high end. So 2005, I go up there, and I went up there with in my head, I knew my goal, but my biggest goal was complete it, don't compete at it.
Mm. Yeah. Complete,
Just
compete.
because it's my first one.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And the guys that were doing it have done others, and the other big thing in my head was to respect the distance. You have to respect each part of it. It's 140.6 miles, 2.4, 112, 26. And he's like, you have to respect the whole distance, or it's going to eat you up.
That's right. That's for sure.
So I had a ball. It was in fact, people watching me were like, why were you smiling? I said, I was just having so much fun. Yeah, but at mile 18 on the run in an Ironman, no one's smiling.
Yeah.
You're waving at people. I'm like, yes.
You know what's interesting is you say you respect the distance. I had zero respect for the distance in the sense of I had run so many marathons. You know, I'd run 30 marathons, and I was like, all right, just get through the bike and the swim. Get through the swim and the bike. I don't have to worry about the marathon because I could run a marathon in my sleep. I can tell you,
Mm-hmm.
mile 10 of that marathon, I thought I was going to die. I thought like this is the worst agony of my life. Like who runs a marathon at the end of biking 112
Yeah.
miles? And so it's
Yeah.
interesting you say that. I'm training now for another Ironman, and that's gonna be my mantra now in my head: respect the distance.
Respect the distance. I love when I talk to people who haven't done them, and they say, "Oh no, I could do the bike. That's no problem." I'm like, okay, all right, good luck. I don't just go
six,
for it. If you want
six
my
hours
advice, ask.
6 hours on a bike is
Oh,
not a short time. All right, so now you're you're doing Lake Placid.
yeah. So I'm up. So I'm up at Lake Placid the first time. I had a fabulous day. Something that would have me come back for more. I went 11:18.
Wow.
I and it dropped down from my strength. My swimming was not my strength, so I came out of the water in like 1200th place. Then off the bike, I was in like 400th place overall. I think I went 5:55,
Wow.
and then I wound up running my fastest marathon ever. I ran a 3:40.
Wow. So you PR'd the marathon.
I PR'd my marathon in an Ironman.
That's the way to do it. That's a
Uh,
way.
uh,
At Lake Placid, again, it's not flat.
it's not flat. Nothing's flat except for the water. That's about it. Um, yeah. So I mean, I was on top of my game. I was fit. Like I said, I was with the right people, the right group. We already had our next goal, and I was shutting down triathlon and focusing on the New York City Marathon later that year. And my goal was to qualify for Boston. And also, I was now transitioned from the fire department basketball team to the fire department running team.
Mm.
And I wanted to be one of the top five guys and or girls in that on that day in the marathon compete against the police
Yeah.
for the Mayor's Cup.
Yeah.
So we trained really hard all summer. I was in the best shape of my life. Everything was going smooth. I come up to the in November of '05 New York City Marathon, and I ran a 3:13. Qualified for Boston,
Wow.
finished fourth. So
Wow.
life was good.
Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. How old are you at that point? 30s?
38.
38. Wow. 3:13.
38. Right.
So you beat
Yeah.
you beat the time by 7 minutes, 8 minutes. What's the qualifying time? 3:20?
Now for me that year was 3:15.
Oh wow. So you beat it by a
I
couple.
actually went 3:13.49, but you don't count the seconds.
No.
You just trend them down.
And you round down. Round down.
That's it.
So all right, so now life's good. What happened?
About a month later, it's Christmas time in New York City. I lived in the city, and I had to get over to Randall's Island. At this point in my career, I was an instructor at the fire academy, so I'm teaching fire operations to new recruits and physically training them in the PT health and fitness unit. And I had to get there before Christmas break. It was 23rd of Christmas or 22nd of Christmas, December. And I'm riding my bike up 3rd Avenue, Manhattan, and 40,000-pound bus just made a turn down a small street, not a turn I would expect the bus to do, and I went under.
Mm,
Basically cut in half. The bike and I became one. I was bleeding to death on 52nd Street and 3rd Avenue.
mm, mm. So now what? So now you're dying basically on 52nd Street in the city that you've
Um,
been born and raised. Wow.
uh, the last thing I remember, before passing out, was, like I said, I was in the bar and restaurant business, so I knew all the firemen. My house was up in Spanish Harlem, but I knew all the guys from the houses going up, going north in Manhattan. And the last thing I remember is a guy cutting it was freezing out, so he's cutting one of my Nomex hoods off. I had like a nice, face mask hood kind of thing on under my helmet, and I heard the guy say, "Oh my God, it's Matt Long from 43 Truck." And then I knew I was in good hands, and I was just went boom, and that's the last thing I remember. Brought to New York Presbyterian Hospital, and I was there for 5 months, 43 surgeries. I got 68 units of blood in the first 10 or 11 hours of my ordeal.
Wow.
They were begging the doctor to stop giving me blood because they said, "We're wasting it. He's not going to make it."
Wow. Wow. And so you made it. You made it.
I made it. One funny part of that my parents told me later on, here I am fighting for my life. Doctors and nurses are taking care of me, trying to stop the bleeding. And, let me run through from head to toe, right? My left leg, tib, fib, compound fracture, femur, compound fracture. My right side of my pelvis shattered, compound fracture. My abdominal wall was torn out, muscle organs just exposed. My right shoulder, compound fracture. Femoral artery was severed. All these little other arteries around so they couldn't stop the bleeding. Now, the doctor goes out. The doctors have a tough job with something like this where they can't give too much hope to my parents, but they don't want to let them know how dire it is.
Yeah.
And this guy, he was, in fact, he was a marathon runner himself. He went out to my mom and dad and said, "Listen, this is as bad as it gets. And he has about a 1% chance to live. We're doing everything we can." And he actually tells me later in life that when he went out to tell them that, he was expected to go back in and see me expired.
Oh, wow.
My mom says to him, "Doc, the best you can. He's running the Boston Marathon in April." And the doctor was like, "What?" And that's my mother's first thought. That was her mindset.
Wow.
And he was like, he's what?" She goes, "He's running the Boston Marathon. He just did New York 4 weeks ago, ran a 3:13. He ran New York and did like a 4:25." And he went back in. He went back into the room and told the nurses, "We're not dealing with the average person here. Give him more blood."
What a great
Here
story.
today.
What a great
Yep.
story. So this guy becomes the miracle worker, saves you,
Yep.
right? Saves you.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up, and what does he say to you?
Whew. I remember when I woke up and he was there. I said, "I'm laying in bed. I was on a ventilator, so I had a tracheotomy, and I have my hands laying on the external fixator that was coming out of my abdomen to keep my pelvis together." I had no idea what it was. There was just a nice resting point for my one arm. This arm was up in a cast or something, and I'm like, "All right, what am I getting out of here? I got things to do. I got to get home." I was all delirious, and then he was like, "Oh, what? What?" I'm like, "Yeah, come on, let's go. Get this stuff off me. We got to go." And he's like, "Settle down."
give,
What happened to me?
give him some more
Run
drugs.
up.
Knock him out.
Yeah. He goes, "You were run over by a bus. We're doing the best we can. You're going to be here for a while." I was there 5 months.
At what point did you know that you you were going to continue to compete, that you were going to continue to.
Mm.
At what point did you come to that realization, or was it immediate, or was it a long road
No,
to that?
no. Hence the long run.
Yeah.
It was not immediate. There was no thought of it. In fact, Chad, I gave everything away as soon as I got home out of the hospital. That's when that feeling of depression and the struggle, the battle of why this happened and what's next, all those things that you would imagine running through my head. As soon as I was home, I started looking around like I was single and I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. I had one of those pole bike racks. I had 2 bikes on them. I had skis in the corner. I had golf clubs in the closet. All things that I didn't think I would ever do again.
Mm.
So I called up people who I knew would enjoy them, and I gave everything away. Everything. And in fact, the bike that I did my Ironman in was what, back then, it's not expensive now, but back then it was an expensive bike. I gave it to a guy who had the same, I met at a half Ironman. He had the same bike for like 30 years. I said, this will look good on you. And he rode it for another 20 years. So I gave everything away, started to figure out that I was giving up on life again. I had no plan. I had no goals. I had no dreams. I had nothing. So I would say about a year after being released from the hospital, when things started to turn them back around.
What was there an event? Was there a moment that you were like,
Mm.
this is make a decision, do it or don't, like,
Yeah.
move on or give up?
Yep. So I was going in and out of doctor's appointments. So now this whole year was filled with therapy, and there was things they couldn't do. Without the body healing properly. So for the biggest one was that I went home with a abdominal hernia. Basically, they took skin off my legs to close my abdominal wall, but the muscles were so damaged that they had to let it heal. I also went home with a colostomy bag. So the damage down below and everything else was so bad that there was no certainty that I was going to get reconnected and lose the bag, or am I going to have the bag the rest of my life? So I was waiting for these things to roll. There was timelines, and there's things I had to do, and how to get my body stronger. I went into the hospital 178 pounds, probably 12% body fat, and I left the hospital 122 pounds.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was 122. I couldn't. I was weak. I couldn't stand up, for more than a minute or two. So as time went by and I ticked the boxes off, visiting the doctors, taking care of therapy, I went into one of my doctors, and he was the main guy wasn't there. One of his assistants was, and he just said to me, Mr. Long, we looked at all the tests we just did. He goes, I don't think we can help you anymore. This is how you're going to have to figure out how to live your life. And that was the colostomy bag and closing of my abdomen. And I was like, that's when I hit rock bottom. And this is the big event. This is me and my mom and my dad sitting at a table after an appointment I was in a wheelchair and we're having lunch. And I just said to him flat out, I said, I'm glad you guys prayed and your prayers were answered, but you didn't consider mine. I said, no one deserves to live like this. I certainly can't live like this. I wish you would have prayed for me to die. Whoa.
You said that to your parents?
Yeah. Now, my father was a Marine, and he was a pretty big guy, and he could be scary at times. He started to cry. I looked over at my mother, and I figured it was time for a little hug, And I didn't get a hug. She slammed her hands on the table, and she said, enough's enough. She said, if you want to be a miserable SOB the rest of your life, do it by yourself. There's plenty of people in this world that are suffering. You are not the only one. And I was like, whoa. So I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going home. And I wheeled away from the table. And I wheeled to the front door of the restaurant. And there was 3 steps I had to go down. I had to wheel myself back and ask for help.
I'm leaving.
So
Can you help me?
I'm leaving. They were like, my father, I think he's like, he can't go anywhere.
All right, so
But
you
so
need
that
there, and then is that.
that's the trigger. That's the trigger. You sometimes you get hit with a hammer. It doesn't hurt until the next day. So my mom hit me with that hammer. It probably took 2 weeks for me to realize that she was 100% correct. And I had, and I firmly believe this now in life is that at every fork in the road or at every decision in life or every moment in time that you have an obstacle, there's 2 choices. Okay. One is to quit or say no and it's done. The other choice is forge ahead and you'll know that you know what's coming, more obstacles.
Hmm.
On one side is easy. I'm done. I quit. Wash your hands, walk away. I'm still in a wheelchair. My mom's words, and I said to myself, okay, I it's up to me. I can do this. Quit was not an option. Move forward. What do we do? I started taking therapy more serious. When I had firemen to talk about the team, right? With the circles. Firemen guys would volunteer their time to pick me up, put me in the van, take me to therapy. So they're like, well, I'm with you for 3 hours. What do you want to do? I'm like, I want to go to the gym. You just came from therapy. Let's go. I have to go to the gym. I enlisted a guy who used to watch me work out before my accident. He was an older trainer in the gym. I said, can you help me? He said, absolutely. He got me in and out of machines that anyone else could do, and I just couldn't do. I couldn't get in the machines. He moved the plates for me. He helped me just build my strength. And 6 months after the mindset switch and after everything becoming serious, 5 days a week of training, treating myself like an Ironman again, like a marathon runner. I'm not just training for an event. I'm training for life.
Hmm.
After about 6 months, I went back to that doctor. He said, wow, you put on some weight. You put on some muscle. Let's do that test again. And they ran me through a whole bunch of tests. And he says, you keep this up, we're going to put you back together. And that was just what I wanted to hear. And once I was back together, I took it to the next level. And that's once my body and my mind were whole and I'm not without obstacles and not without, things that I have to worry about, but for all intents and purposes, the plumbing's back together and life is good. And that's when I said to myself, the bus is not going to take away who I was. I was a marathon runner. I was a good athlete. I was a triathlete, an Ironman. I want to do those 2 things one more time, and then I could stop on my terms.
Hmm. So did you? Have you?
I did. I went back to the New York City Marathon in 2008. It took me 7 hours and 21 minutes to finish. And then I went back to Lake Placid in 2009, and I finished in 16 hours, 58 minutes and 6 seconds.
Oh,
I was the last finisher.
2 minutes. 2 minutes to go,
2
right?
minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes to go. Better luck next year, they tell you, right? If you
Yeah.
don't finish at midnight.
I saw people getting yanked off the course. You know, 17 hours. My first one. It took me 16 hours, close to 16 hours, and people
It's
were
a long day.
imagine going 17 hours and getting yanked off the course and said, "Well, come back next year. You don't get to finish." You know,
Thanks for
so
the donation.
so thanks for the very expensive donation. So throughout the journey, did you discover any um, unexpected sources of motivation or inspiration? Um, did you like what was the besides the idea of hey, I'm fighting for life? Was there any unexpected like man, I find motivation in this because to me, you have to be unbelievably intrinsically motivated. Besides, there's a lot of studies that say that when people have an option of get healthy or lose your life, right? Like people still choose to go back to their comfort zone and take the easy path. What was besides the idea of seems like a big enough one to me, but besides the idea of living your life in a wheelchair and with a colostomy bag and not on your terms, was there any other sources of motivation?
Well, I think what my other source was outside of my mom. So when I travel speaking, and Chad, I'm not going to put years on you, but are we close in age or are
We're
you?
close. Yes, we're close in age. Yeah.
Okay,
I
so you may remember.
think I might actually have you by a couple years.
um, you may remember growing up, kitchen stove, and 4 burners. But if
Yeah.
you touched the center of that stove where the pilot light was always burning,
Right.
it was always warm. It wasn't hot, but it was always warm, right?
Yeah.
So the pilot light was burning.
Yeah. 24/7.
So I like to equate that when I speak. I use that analogy that we all have this thing called the human spirit.
Yeah.
That's the pilot light on the 1950 gas stove. My mom, at that moment in time where she said enough's enough, she turned on at least the 2 front burners. And she got me thinking. And once that started to think, all right, how do I get these other 4 burners going? How do I get Matt Long back to who he was before? I started to think about the guys in the firehouse driving me to and from therapy, cooking for 5 months, Chad. 5 months I didn't have hospital food. They cooked every night, not only for me, but for my entire family
Yeah. Mm.
and visitors. So if there were 30 people up there visiting, the firehouse brought up trays of food
Wow.
for 5 months.
Unbelievable.
I thought about my therapist. I thought about the doctor, my doctor who missed Christmas from his kids because he had a surgery on me. The same doctor who missed New Year's with his kid's birthday, one kid's child's birth, because he was operating on me. I thought about all the pieces of the puzzle. If I said to myself, "Hey, I'm done. I'm staying in a wheelchair," well, I didn't just quit on me. I quit on them,
Mm. Mm.
and that was that was the external motivation. And then I remember at the end of the New York City Marathon, 7 hours and 21 minutes, my orthopedic surgeon, who doesn't have time for anything outside of his job, let alone his kids sometimes, him, his wife, and his 4 kids were at the finish line. He gave me a big hug. They watched the race, and he said to he didn't even congratulate me. He looked at his kids and said, "Girls, 4 girls, 3 girls. This is why Daddy missed Christmas." And the kids hugged. We all hugged. I thanked him, and I thanked them for lending me him.
Mm.
So my external motivation was to give back to all those people to let them know their efforts weren't wasted on me.
So you talked about it a little bit. We talked about it a lot. The recovery, the physical recovery, but what was the mental recovery that you had to overcome, and how do you do that? So for most, going running an Ironman or training for an Ironman or overcoming obstacles that you've overcome seems daunting to most people that haven't been through it. But what's more daunting is sometimes is that critic in your head, the voice in your head that you're battling every day. And you don't need to be hit by a bus to to have this voice in your head. But here you are, you go through 9/11, the voice in your head gets very loud. Then you overcome that, you get hit by a bus, literally hit by a bus, and the voice in your head's got to be at this point deafening, like unbelievably loud.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
You, look, just like we have that pilot light, the human spirit. There's that voice in the head, right? Everyone has it, no matter what they're going through. A broken toe to you is different to a broken toe to someone else, and so I never try to compare myself to anyone. Of, and especially for my mom's words of, "There's always someone else suffering more," right? Or going to have less success than I had with the comeback. Um, I just think the biggest thing that people have to do, I say this, I say to people, it's okay to have a pity party. It's okay. It's okay to wake up in the morning and have that moment of self doubt, um, or that question yourself, why me? I said that is okay. What's not okay is for you to let it win.
Mm.
What's not okay is for you to say to succumb to those thoughts and say, well, throw the flag up, I'm done. That's never okay in my book. Never. And my question was never why me, why this happened to me. As a fireman, I responded to people under trucks and buses and car accidents and fires. I've seen it. I've seen the tragedies. So I never said why me. like I'm special. I asked why I lived. I always asked myself, and today, Chad, 17 years later, I have a bad day. I'm blessed. I got a beautiful family now. But if I have a bad day, bad start to my day, or my body's not cooperating, I, I, I ask, I have the pity party, and then I realize, hey, someone else didn't get up this morning. Someone else lost their house this morning. Someone else lost a leg, serving our country. Someone else is worse than me, and I snap back.
So is the answer to that question, this question of why did I live, in the moment that you're sitting in the restaurant with your parents having lunch, right? Why did I live has a certain answer. But today, you may ask yourself that same question and have a completely different answer.
Absolutely, and I could almost say that I have the answer now. So I remember, and a family priest came to visit me when I was still in the hospital, and that's the first time I asked him. He had asked me if I was angry with God, and I said, "Well, I lied. I said I'm not going to tell the priest I'm pissed off at God. Why'd this happen to me?" But so I said, "No, I'm not angry with God. Of course not." I said, "I just want to know why I lived. Well, not why it happened. I want to know why I lived. Why am I going through? Getting hit by the bus was easy. Going through 43, now I'm up to 48 surgeries. Going through the stuff afterwards, that's hard." So I said, "Why did I live?" And he sat in silence for a little bit and just looked at me and said, he goes, "That's between you and God." Now, I go to church. I'm a man of faith. I believe things happen for a reason. I'm not overly religious, and I don't push it into my talks or on people I talk to. But now, 17 years later, I know that answer, and I have hundreds of emails. Hundreds of people have written me letters. "I've read your book," or "I heard your story, and if it wasn't for you, I would have quit." If it wasn't, so I firmly believe, and it could be just a hamstring pull, but I firmly believe that I wasn't training to qualify for Boston. I wasn't quite training to become go to Kona. I was not knowingly training for life because I was strong enough to do it, and I was strong enough to help someone else get through their problems.
That's right. You were a vehicle. You were a vehicle to save the lives of others, and that's why we're putting. So it's amazing. And a thing I often talk about is the quality of your life is predicated on the questions you ask yourself. Ask yourself great questions, you'll have a great life. Ask yourself weak questions, you'll have a weak life. And so, asking yourself the question of, hey, why did I live? Now you understand not only why you live, but understanding why you were hit by the bus and what the impact you'll have on the world is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of my questions here. This is right on this, and that's this story has inspired individuals facing all different types of adversity. You don't everybody has adversity. What's the takeaway do you hope that readers, and you kind of talked about what's the takeaway you hope readers get when they read this book? I'm saying you poured your life into a book, and those that I encourage everybody to get the book. But those of you who have read it or get it and are going to read it, you're going to see, we're this is a trailer to. We're not even getting into the real meat and potatoes of the book, but you're going to see perseverance and resilience at its best. What are you hoping that people get out of this?
That's what I hope. I hope they take out of the book that anything's possible, and if not to give up on yourself when so many people have had faith in you. And what you just said about asking yourself good questions, ask yourself weak questions, you have a weak life. If I would have kept asking myself, why me, why me, why me, I'd still be in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And okay, who's going to say anything bad? I was run over by a 40,000-pound bus. He belongs in a wheelchair. Yeah. Instead, I asked why did I live? Now I'm searching for purpose.
That's right. Now I'm searching for
purpose. I got back on my fitness train. I got back to taking care of myself. And your body wants to be healthy. The bad back is not that your back is broken. It's that maybe you're carrying too much weight in the midsection. Maybe you're laying on the couch too much. movement. The body wants movement. And as I started to move again, that doctor, who would have thought he was going to connect my intestines again so I can live a normal life when it comes to going to the bathroom. And just by training harder, he saw the muscle develop and said, we're going to put you back together.
You're doing the work. We're going to put you back together.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Dr. Edith Eagers in her book, The Choice, says she was a survivor of the Holocaust. And she said, you know, I didn't get to choose whether I was a victim. Hitler decided I was going to be a victim and made me a victim. But victimhood is 100% my choice. And I refuse to stay in a state of victimhood. You didn't have a choice of whether you were a victim of that bus. But you did have a choice of whether you stayed in a state of victimhood, and you've decided I wasn't going to, and you became victor instead of victim.
Yep, absolutely. And that nails it. That nails it right on the head. And is my life perfect? No, but whose is? Whose is?
Perfectly imperfect is what I say.
Yeah.
All right, so Matt, just two other questions. One, where do people find you? They want to follow you. Where do they find you? How do they get in touch? How do they
on Instagram and Twitter? I get most of my contacts through Instagram and Twitter. I'm at 43 Long Matt. I do have a foundation. They're called the I Will Foundation. They can always look that up and get me at mattlongspeaker.com or mattlongspeaker@gmail.com. You know, I get emails all the time, which is, you know, I don't like to do a podcast without talking about someone who, you know, I always tell them I found a guy who was injured as bad as I was years before me, and someone introduced us through the power of the internet. We have not physically met, and I told him, I said, you help me, and I'll help others. So he was at my beck and call via email or phone because we had a lot of similarities in injuries. And that I made the I Will Foundation so that people could find me so that I can help them. People could see my story and hopefully not give up.
That's awesome. You know, I've run, I think I may have told you, but I've run the New York City Marathon 5 times. And all 5 times I wear the same shirt. I've done 38 marathons at this point, but I've worn the same shirt for every marathon, and the shirt has 2 words on it. And the 2 words are "I will." I will. It's a small world.
I saw that picture.
So if you're not following Matt, follow Matt. Get the book, The Long Run. Really, really well done. Thanks for coming on. I have one final question for you. When you leave this earth, you know, 50 years from now, and you ascend to heaven, what do you want your contribution to have been?
Well, I hope I'm remembered as just like someone who, you know, just would never give up. And if that was contagious to anyone who's crossed my path, I hope that when they have met their obstacle, their adversity, that they learned from me and what I went through, because it was a hell of a journey. And I would like to think that I went through so much so someone else wouldn't have to.
Great answer. Matt Long, The Long Run, a New York City firefighter's triumphant comeback from crash victim to elite athlete, an all-around hell of a guy. Matt, thanks for getting on. I'd love to continue our friendship and relationship, but next time I'm in New York, I'll be running New York in November for the 6th time with my daughter for the first time. So my daughter will be the first time. So I'm excited. It's always the best. Of all the marathons I've run, there's nothing like it.
No, it's great. I'm always at it. I miss it. I miss running so much. I try to fuel my competitive edge differently these days. But I miss running so much. It was just so easy. Put the shoes on, shirt or no shirt, doesn't matter.
Put the shoes on and go. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
If I'm in November, I'll come and see you.
I would love that. We'll have dinner the night before. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you, Matt.